Welcome back to the deep dive. We're here to really get into the weeds of global supply chains, turning those operational details into, well, intelligence you can actually use.
Exactly.
And today, we're focusing on something you probably see every single day, Colgate toothpaste. But we're looking at it from a different angle, not the consumer view, but the high-volume trader perspective.
That's right. For wholesale importers, distributors, anyone managing logistics on a large scale, understanding the shelf life of an FMCG, a fast-moving consumer good like toothpaste, it's not just a tick box exercise.
No, definitely not.
It's really fundamental. It impacts your financial viability, your inventory cost, and honestly, maintaining that global customer confidence is huge.
Okay, let's unpack that. We're moving way beyond just, is this one tube okay to use? We're talking about, say, leveraging competitive bulk pricing, maybe from a big sourcing hub like Vietnam, which we'll get into, while also guaranteeing, absolutely guaranteeing, that product freshness across supply chains that can take months. It's complex.
It really is. Our mission today, if you like, is to define what we're calling the shelf life imperative. It's about ensuring these products, they stay functional, safe, and crucially effective. They need to work as advertised.
Throughout the entire journey.
The whole journey, from leaving the factory, maybe in Southeast Asia, right until it lands on a retail shelf somewhere overseas. And there's this constant tension, isn't there? You want the volume, the good price.
Of course.
But you've got this clock ticking, the quality standard. Now, we hear 2 years, 24 months. That's kind of the baseline for many Colgate products.
Right.
But, and this is key, there are variations. And there are environmental factors that can mess with that timeline. That's where the real operational challenge kicks in.
Okay, let's start right there with that standard 2 years, so 24 months. When we look at the expected lifespan of, say, a standard Colgate toothpaste, what's the actual chemical reason behind that specific time frame? And, why is it so important to stick to it?
Okay, so the core fact, like you said, is around 2 years, 24 months. That's calculated from the date it was manufactured. Now, the why comes down to the active ingredient.
Fluoride.
Fluoride, exactly. That's the component that gives the toothpaste its primary value proposition, right? Dental health.
It's the workhorse, what consumers are paying for.
Precisely. The toothpaste's whole effectiveness, its efficacy profile, it really hinges on the stability of that fluoride compound. Usually it's sodium fluoride, sometimes monofluorophosphate.
And its job is?
Well, it actively fights tooth decay, helps remineralize enamel, basically strengthens your teeth. But if the toothpaste goes past its shelf life, the chemical stability of that fluoride, it starts to weaken.
It degrades.
It degrades, yeah. It can start reacting with other things in the paste, the water, maybe the abrasive agents. It just doesn't stay as potent.
Okay, so what's the risk then? If a product gets shipped or maybe sits on a shelf past that date, I heard it doesn't necessarily cause, direct harm.
Well, that distinction between harm and efficacy is super important for the B2B side, even if it sounds subtle. For consumer safety, using expired toothpaste usually isn't dangerous. But for a business, it's a completely different story.
How so?
Because it leads to a documented reduction in efficacy. The fluoride just isn't doing its job as well, maybe significantly less well.
Ah, I see.
And from a distributor's point of view, or an importer's, that loss of function is, well, it can be catastrophic. It undermines the whole guarantee of the product. Plus, as ingredients degrade, you can get physical changes too.
Like what?
The paste might separate, you get liquid pooling, or the flavor could just go really off, become unpleasant. Nobody wants that.
Right. Okay, let's really dig into this from the viewpoint of someone handling, say, a massive shipment, a container load. Why is reduced efficacy such a major, potentially financially damaging issue for a big distributor? They're just moving boxes, essentially.
But they're not just moving boxes. They're guaranteeing the quality within those boxes. Reduced efficacy brings huge risks. First, regulatory risk. Different countries have rules about product standards.
Okay.
Second, and this is massive financial liability. Imagine you've imported a container. Maybe it cost you $500,000. It lands, and oops, it only has 6 months of shelf life left. Maybe even less.
That's tight.
Very tight. Now, maybe a retailer takes it, but then their quality control, or maybe customer complaints, reveal the fluoride levels are low because it's old stock. What happens? Exactly. You're facing immediate warranty claims. The retailer might just reject the whole batch. Huge chargebacks, some big chains, they won't even accept products unless there's a minimum of, say, 12 or even 18 months of life left on delivery.
Wow, 18 months.
Yeah. So a loss of efficacy means you haven't met the spec. That whole expensive batch, it becomes a liability. You might lose the entire value, plus you have to pay for disposal, which can be surprisingly costly.
Disposal costs more than the product sometimes?
Often, yeah, especially for chemical products. And fundamentally, it just destroys the trust the retailer has in you, the trust the end consumer has in the brand. It all traces back.
So knowing exactly when that clock runs out is paramount. Mastering the inventory intake, checking those dates, that's your first line of defense.
Absolutely critical. And the data is right there on the tube itself.
But it's not always obvious, is it?
No, not at all. Unlike, say, a carton of milk with a big use-by date. On a toothpaste tube, the expiration info is often, well, subtle. It might be etched or heat-stamped, sometimes laser printed.
Where should people be looking?
Logistics teams, warehouse staff, they need specific training. Look really closely at the crimped end of the tube, that sealed flatbed. Or sometimes it's on the bottom flap of the outer cardboard box, if it has one. You can't just glance at the pallet.
And the codes themselves, I mean, you rarely see a nice, clear expires October 2026.
You're lucky if you do. Often it's more cryptic. You might get an explicit date marked EXP for expiry. That's the dream. Or you might just get a manufacturing date marked MFG or MFD. Or, and this is common too, you get a more complex batch code, maybe alphanumeric, that needs decoding.
Right, the batch code lottery.
Kind of. And for logistics managers handling bulk imports, maybe from Vietnam, like we mentioned, that manufacturing date, the MFD, is often the most critical piece of data because that's what starts the 24-month countdown for standard products.
Okay, so let's say a shipment arrives and all you have is the MFD. How do you establish that firm, audible expiry date for your inventory system?
For the standard lines, the calculation is straightforward, but it has to be applied rigorously. You add exactly 24 months to the manufacturing date.
Can you give us a concrete example?
Sure. Let's say a batch arrives and the tubes are marked MFD 2024. That means October 2024. Your system must flag that batch to expire in October 2026, period.
Non-negotiable.
Absolutely. Any sales forecast, any shipment plan that assumes it's okay beyond that date, that's introducing serious financial risk.
Now, you mentioned the need for rigor. But when you're dealing with thousands, maybe millions of tubes, manual decoding seems like a recipe for human error. You also mentioned digital tools like batchcode.org or even seeing guides on TikTok. How reliable are those for, say, enterprise-level work?
That's a really important operational question. Are those consumer-focused tools robust enough for, like, customs declarations or internal audits?
Yeah.
The short answer is probably not as your primary system. They can be useful maybe as a secondary check or for training staff on what to look for and where. Visual guides are great for that.
But not for the official record.
Exactly. A wholesale importer can't really stand in front of customs or a major retail partner waving a TikTok video as proof their date calculation is correct. You need something more robust.
So what's the solution?
You need a clear, documented internal protocol. Ideally, this is integrated right into your ERP system, your enterprise resource planning software. Trained staff need to manually verify the code format when stock arrives. They document the MFD, calculate the expiry date, EXP, log it, and ensure that whole process aligns the labeling laws of the destination country. The online tools, they help train the eyes, but the responsibility, the accuracy, that stays firmly with the importer.
Okay, we've got the 24-month baseline, pretty clear for the standard lines, like Colgate Total or Cavity Protection. But the source material you looked at throws a pretty big logistical curveball. Significant variations within the Colgate brand itself.
Yes, this is where things get really interesting and where standard inventory systems, the simple ones, can really fall down.
Yeah.
Operational sophistication becomes, well, not optional.
Because not everything is 24 months.
Exactly. While 24 months is the default rule of thumb, certain specialized formulas are actually engineered for longer stability. This could be down to different preservative systems they use, maybe unique abrasive components, or even the type of plastic or laminate in the tube itself.
Okay, let's nail down the specifics from the source. Which Colgate lines offer this crucial extended lifespan?
The research pointed to two specific examples that stand out. They boast a significantly longer shelf life, stretching up to 36 months.
36? That's 3 years.
3 years. An entire extra year, or 50% longer than the standard 24 months. The examples given were Colgate Active Salt Toothpaste and also Colgate Max Fresh, both mentioned as potentially lasting up to 36 months.
Wow. That extra 12 months, that's huge, isn't it? It completely changes the risk calculation for things like working capital tied up in inventory, your turnover rates.
It's massive.
So imagine you're a distributor. You get a mixed container. some standard cavity protection, some max fresh. How on earth do you manage these two different time bombs ticking away in the same warehouse? One goes off at 24 months, the other at 36.
Well, what's really fascinating here, like you said, is that it shows longevity isn't just about the brand name, Colgate. It's about the specific chemistry inside that tube.
Right, the formulation.
The formulation. And managing this means you have to ditch the simplest inventory principle, which is FIFO. First in, first out.
Why doesn't FIFA work here?
Because of the different expiry dates. Let's say you receive that 36-month Max Fresh, manufactured in January 2024. Then, a week later, you get a shipment of 24-month cavity protection, manufactured in March 2024.
Okay, so the cavity protection is newer stock.
Newer stock arrived later. But under FIFO, you maybe try to sell the Max Fresh first because it arrived first. That's wrong here.
Ah, because the cavity protection expires sooner.
Exactly. The cavity protection, made in March 24, expires in March 26. The Max Fresh, made in January 24, doesn't expire until January 27. So the cavity protection must be prioritized for sale, even though it's technically newer and arrived later.
So we need a different system. You need to introduce, what is it, FIFO?
Absolutely. The superior approach, really the mandatory approach for managing mixed expiry FMCG inventory like this, is FIFO, first expired, first out.
First expired, first out.
Your logistics system, your warehouse team, everyone needs to prioritize shipments based on the actual calculated expiration date, regardless of when the product was made or when it landed in your warehouse.
That sounds like it requires a much more sophisticated tracking system.
It does. You need systems, often barcode-driven, that can differentiate between a 24-month SKU and a 36-month CU, even within the same brand, and flag them correctly. This level of detail, it's the difference between running a smooth, low-risk operation and constantly dealing with expensive write-offs for obsolete stock.
Could importers actually use this strategically?
Oh, absolutely. Sophisticated buyers might deliberately choose the 36-month variants for certain situations, maybe for long sea voyages or shipping to destinations known for slow customs clearance or bureaucratic delays.
Ah, building in a buffer.
Exactly. You're essentially buying yourself an extra 12 months of buffer against that logistical volatility.
Yeah.
It's smart planning.
Okay, so we've got the chemical stability, the different timelines, but beyond the chemistry inside the tube, the physical environment plays a huge, maybe often overlooked role in actually achieving that stated lifespan. Let's talk storage, proper storage guidelines.
Yes, proper storage is absolutely critical. You need to maintain not just the chemical integrity, especially that fluoride, but also the physical texture of the paste. You don't want it separating or drying out.
So what are the rules?
The general advice is pretty standard. Keep toothpaste in a cool, dry environment, away from direct sunlight. Simple enough for a bathroom shelf.
But for our B2B audience, moving containers around the world, it's more complex.
Much more complex. We need to get specific about temperature.
Yeah.
Cool and dry isn't precise enough for managing a global supply chain.
Right. What are the key operational concerns, especially if you're sourcing from a hot, humid place like Vietnam?
The number one enemy is heat. Thermal excursion. Colgate toothpaste, like most complex chemical mixtures, really needs to be stored, ideally, below 30 degrees Celsius. That's about 86 Fahrenheit.
And what happens if it gets hotter? Sitting on a dockside.
If it's exposed to extreme heat. Imagine a container sitting unprotected on a dock in Ho Chi Minh City in the middle of a sunny afternoon. Temperatures inside could soar. This heat dramatically accelerates the degradation process we talked about earlier.
So it speeds up the clock.
Effectively, yes. High temperatures can cause the binding agents in the paste, things like polyethylene oxide or sorbitol, to break down. The paste can separate. You might get that liquid seepage. And the product becomes visibly unusable long before its official expiry date.
So even if you've got that premium 36-month max fresh, if your container gets cooked on a tropical dock for a week without any temperature mitigation, that extra year of shelf life could be completely wiped out.
It's essentially invalidated.
Yeah.
Yes. The chemical integrity is compromised. This means importers and their logistics partners, they need to be proactive. It's not just about having air conditioning in the warehouse, though that's important.
What else?
Critically, for high-value or sensitive shipments, you need to consider using continuous temperature monitoring devices, data loggers.
Inside the container.
Inside the container, exactly. These little devices track the temperature throughout the entire journey. They give you an auditable record, proof.
Proof that it stayed within limits.
Or proof that it didn't.
Yeah.
If that data logger shows a spike, say above 40 degrees C for a prolonged period, the importer has a serious decision to make. Even if the printed expiry date is still a year away, you might need to pull samples for quality testing. or potentially divert or even reject the shipment upon arrival.
That sounds like sophisticated risk management.
It is. That's how you protect your investment and ensure the product reaching the consumer is actually effective when dealing with global FMCG exports.
Let's shift focus a bit now to the manufacturer. Colgate. They're a huge global player. They aren't just churning out toothpaste. They're managing this incredible flow of millions and millions of units worldwide. How do they approach quality and proactive inventory management from their end?
Well, their commitment has to be systemic, right? It relies on pretty sophisticated production analytics and planning. The manufacturer uses rigorous internal inventory management protocols.
What's their main goal there?
It's primarily focused on efficient stock rotation.
Mm-hmm.
For them, internally, it's generally FIFO, first in, first out. They want to make sure that the older batches they produce clear out through their distribution channels before the newer batches get released.
Makes sense. Reduces waste, keeps things fresh.
Exactly. It minimizes the potential for product expiring within their own network, reduces global waste, and helps maintain that consistent product effectiveness that the brand relies on.
And the source material also mentioned something interesting about packaging. How they use design to influence things at the consumer end, too.
Yeah, that was an interesting point. It mentioned the use of travel-size kits. Now, obviously, these are marketed for convenience, for travel.
Sure.
But from a strategic logistical standpoint, they serve another purpose. They encourage faster use, regular, immediate consumption.
Because they're small, you use them up quickly.
Right. By minimizing the chance that a tube sits half-used in someone's bathroom cabinet for years, the manufacturer subtly reinforces consumer trust.
How?
By making it more likely the product is actually used while it's still well within its optimal efficacy window. It's quite clever.
Okay, now here's where I think it gets really interesting and frankly financially critical for our audience listening in. How does understanding all this manufacturer level detail, the fluoride stability, the 24 versus 36-month difference, their stock rotation methods, how does that translate directly into profit or maybe loss prevention for the wholesale buyer?
It's absolutely fundamental. You could say it's the difference between a solvent import business and one bleeding cash through obsolescence. For the wholesale buyer, failing to manage time-sensitive FMCG like toothpaste, it's a direct hit to your working capital. It can be disastrous.
So how does knowing this help them optimize?
This knowledge allows the buyer to optimize in, I'd say, 3 critical areas. First, purchase planning. Knowing the shelf life variations, knowing the likely remaining life you'll receive based on typical production cycles, it helps you buy the right volume. Not too much, not too little. Volume that aligns precisely with your expected sales velocity before that expiry date hits, especially considering the remaining shelf life upon arrival, not just the total.
Makes sense. What's the second area?
Second, pricing and promotion strategy. If you know you have a batch of 24-month standard toothpaste nearing, say, its last 6 to 8 months of life, alongside a batch of 36-month Max Fresh with 18 months left, you can manage that. You can implement differential pricing, run promotions specifically targeting the shorter dated stock to move it aggressively before it becomes a problem. You prioritize selling the 24-month product, even if the 36-month product costs you the same. It's proactive margin protection.
Right. Get something for it rather than nothing. And the third area, you mentioned 3.
The third area brings us back to systemic internal rigor. We touched on ERP systems before, but it's about embedding this knowledge deeply.
So more than just noting the date.
Much more. It means integrating the calculated expiration, dates the EXP, not just the MFD, right into your inventory management system. Your WMS or ERP needs to be smart enough to handle the variability.
How so?
The system should be configured to automatically flag batches that cross certain internal thresholds. Maybe it alerts you when a 24-month batch hits 9 months remaining life, or a 36-month batch hits 12 months remaining.
Giving you time to react.
Exactly. Gives you runway. Time for timely diversion to a discount channel, maybe a strategic markdown, or even planning for organized, cost-effective disposal before it hits that absolute expiry cliff and becomes a total financial write-off and a logistical headache.
Can you maybe quantify the disaster scenario? If you don't do this, what's the real cost of, say, a container load expiring in your warehouse?
Oh, the cost is far, far more than just the initial purchase price of the toothpaste. Think about it. You lose the cost of goods sold. Goes to yes, obviously.
Right.
You've already paid the ocean freight, maybe insurance. That's gone. You've paid import duties, taxes, maybe brokerage fees, all sunk costs. Yeah. And then, like we mentioned, you have the disposal costs. Depending on the volume, the product type, local environmental regulations, getting rid of expired product can be complex and very expensive. You might need specialized waste handling.
So one bad container.
One single expired container, depending on the value, it could easily wipe out tens, maybe hundreds of thousands of dollars from your bottom line.
Measly.
Wow. So proper shelf life management. It isn't just good practice. It's not a nice to have. It is absolutely fundamental risk avoidance. It secures the financial viability of your import operation, allows for repeat orders, and solidifies your relationships with the manufacturer upstream and, crucially, with your retail customers downstream. They need to trust you're sending them good product.
Okay, let's pivot now to the where. A key sourcing market for these kinds of products, especially competitively priced FMCG, is Vietnam. It's become a real powerhouse for global exports, hasn't it?
Absolutely. Vietnam has really cemented its position as a critical node in the global FMCG supply chain. They manufacture and distribute a huge array of globally recognized brands. You know, the big multinationals have major operations there, alongside many traditional Asian products popular worldwide.
And for oral care?
For oral care, specifically Colgate, the product lines that are either manufactured in Vietnam or channeled through its distribution networks are significant. They serve the large domestic Vietnamese market, of course, but they're also key items for international export. Many importers look there.
So if you're a wholesale importer and you're looking to tap into that competitive bulk buying power in the Vietnamese market for, say, high volumes of Colgate, you need more than just a sourcing agent, right? You need a partner who really gets all these shelf life complexities we've just spent time detailing.
You absolutely do. Your partner on the ground needs to integrate that necessary rigor, that attention to detail, right from the point of origin, before it even gets on a ship.
And this is where a company specializing in this comes in.
This is precisely where a specialist firm like Asia Grocery Company, Ltd., they go by AGW, Asia Grocery Wholesale, positions themselves. They operate right at that intersection.
What intersection is that?
The intersection of high-volume FMCG sourcing from Vietnam and the operational discipline required for compliant, quality-assured global distribution. That's their niche.
Okay, so tell us a bit about their credentials. What gives them the ability to manage this shelf life complexity, the storage risks, all the things inherent in exporting sensitive goods from a market like Vietnam?
Well, AGW isn't new to this. They operate as a trusted distributor, wholesaler, and exporter, specifically for FMCG out of Vietnam. And critically, they bring over 20 years of expertise to the table.
2 decades. That's significant experience.
It's huge in this business. That experience is vital because it means they understand the nuances. It goes way beyond just finding a good price. Their focus is on delivering authentic products that crucially retain their quality and efficacy throughout the entire export journey.
And their reach.
They have established global reach. They have particular experience, apparently, in delivering bulk, authentic Vietnamese and Asian products to diaspora communities around the world, which requires, flawless execution on logistics and ensuring product freshness upon arrival.
So let me get this straight. When an importer decides to partner with AGW to buy, say, Colgate FMCG in bulk from Vietnam, the advantage isn't solely about the price point.
That's a major part of it, of course. Competitive pricing is key. But the deeper advantage, the value add, is the guaranteed management of that export freshness pipeline.
How do they guarantee that?
Well, they manage the whole complex chain. Sourcing, bulk negotiation, the consolidation, the distribution, all coordinated from Ho Chi Minh City. They actively work to mitigate the risk we've been discussing.
Like the temperature issue.
Exactly, like potential thermal excursion on the docks or improper handling during consolidation. Their established systems, built over those 20 years, are specifically designed to maintain product viability.
What does that look like in practice?
It means things like rigorous checks of the MFD and EXP codes on incoming stock before it's allocated to an export order. It means prioritizing batches with the maximum possible remaining shelf life for international shipments. It might involve using specific short-term packaging or temperature-controlled staging protocols to protect the product during that critical initial transfer phase, especially in Vietnam's often hot and humid climate.
So for our wholesale buyer, maybe listening right now, worried about that 24-month clock ticking away on their capital investment, what's AGW's main role in giving them peace of mind operational support?
I'd say their primary role is providing strategic certainty and risk mitigation. They work to ensure buyers are supplied with product that has the maximum practical shelf life available from the market.
Do they provide visibility?
Often, yes. Good partners provide transparency on the MFD EXP status of the specific batches allocated to your order before the goods are even loaded onto the container. No surprises on arrival.
That seems valuable.
Extremely. Their deep product knowledge, their understanding of the 24 versus 36-month variations, and their sophisticated internal inventory systems. They help the importer maintain that necessary rigor we talked about. They bridge the gap, effectively, from the manufacturer's likely FIFO system within Vietnam to the buyer's essential FIFO system required overseas.
So they turn a potentially complex, risk-exporting, time-sensitive goods into something more manageable.
Into a reliable global supply mechanism. That's the goal. They handle the complexities at the source, so the importer can focus on distribution and sales at the destination.
Wow, okay, so this deep dive has really shown that a simple tube of toothpaste, from a logistics perspective, it's like a miniature chemical clock, isn't it?
Right.
Constantly ticking down, potentially on millions of dollars worth of inventory across the globe. Let's try and synthesize the main theme one last time for everyone managing these supply chains.
I think the central theme has to be operational sophistication. Shelf life isn't just a date printed on a tube. It's a dynamic function of product quality. It's directly linked to that critical fluoride stability.
And it's variable.
Highly variable. It's absolutely non-negotiable that importers must have systems to manage at least two distinct time horizons. That 24-month standard for many lines, and the 36-month potential for specialized variants like Active Salt or Max Fresh. You have to track them separately.
Simultaneously.
And furthermore, realizing that potential shelf life demands strict environmental control during transit and storage, especially avoiding that damaging heat exposure, which can completely undermine the manufacturer's timeline and your product guarantee.
You know, this brings up a final, maybe more strategic thought for our listeners. A provocative question, perhaps?
Okay.
Considering all this complexity, managing 24 and 36-month variants, needing FIFO systems, worrying about temperature on routes from places like Vietnam, if you master this while your competitor maybe just treats all Colgate as a generic 24-month product using basic FIFO, what's the real, measurable, long-term competitive advantage you gain?
That's a great point.
Think about it in terms of maybe capturing more market share because your product is consistently fresher, reducing your spoilage and write-off costs significantly, optimizing your working capital because you're managing inventory flow more intelligently, leveraging those 36-month products strategically.
That advantage has to be quantifiable on the bottom line. It's not just operational efficiency. It's a potential strategic weapon in a competitive market.
Absolutely. So if you are ready to really get a handle on your Colgate toothpaste supply chain, particularly sourcing from Vietnam, and you need a partner who genuinely prioritizes export freshness and understands all these intricacies of strategic shelf life management we've discussed,
Then we strongly suggest engaging with the team at Asia Grocery Wholesale. They have the track record and the systems specifically for this.
ensure you're maximizing that toothpaste longevity, minimizing your risk. You can find out more about their services, their sourcing capabilities. Just visit their website, egrocery.asia. That's egrocery.asia.
And for direct, immediate questions maybe about specific shelf life details on current stock, getting competitive bulk pricing quotes, or understanding the reliable export options they offer, you can contact Asia Grocery Company, Ltd. directly.
How can people do that?
The best way is probably by phone or WhatsApp on +8490 904 6308. Let me repeat that, +8490 904 6308. Or you can send them an email at contact@egrocery.asia.
Okay, great. Take that next step to secure your supply chain certainty. Get those shelf life details sorted.
Definitely worth looking into if you're in this space.
Thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive. We hope it's giving you some valuable insights. We look forward to guiding you through your next logistical challenge soon.